Hello and welcome back to the Rhody Beat Report. I'm Zack Petrick. Alongside me is Peter Gigliotti, Justin Theriault, and Emily Lanzarone. We've got a great show for you all today, discussing the Rams' double overtime win at Hampton, our game reaction and analysis, the significance and history of the beautiful Governor's Cup, the Brown Bears breakdown, and stay tuned as we're only getting started here on the Governor's Cup edition of the Rhody Beat Report. Where do I even begin on the Rams' 46-44 victory over Hampton on Saturday in double overtime? It was an early back-and-forth contest. The Rams struck first with a tie-draw field goal in the middle of the first quarter, but it was the Pirates that ended up scoring that first touchdown of the game in the first quarter with a strip sack of Hunter Helms. The Rams then answered with a huge 31-yard rushing touchdown from Deon Silas. He went scampering down URI's side of the field, waking the team up to tie the game at 10 points apiece. Then the Pirates got the last laugh in the first half as quarterback Malcolm Mays rushed another touchdown with under 2 minutes to go in the first half, and just like that, Rhode Island down 17-10.
Yeah, so both teams added touchdowns in the third quarter as this one started to get a little bit more offensive-oriented. At that point, the Pirates took a 31-17 lead with just 7 minutes to go in this one. And that's when things seemed to look bleak for Rhode Island, being down 14 points with just 7 minutes left in this one. But this 2024 team has shown to be extremely resilient time and time again. Quarterback Devin Farrell, who I may remind you, did not get the starting nod for this week's game. It was the first time that this season that has happened. And he led back-to-back touchdown drives with just mere seconds to go to tie this one up and send it to overtime. A key catch from Greg Gaines at third was the first touchdown in overtime that helped tie the game with Hampton, who got the ball first. The game went through multiple rounds of overtime, with Hampton only scoring 6 in their second try, and the Rams scoring a touchdown, and then they converted on that game-winning 2-point conversion on the 2-yard carry by Devin Farrell.
Saturday, October 12th, 11 a.m. before the Governor's Cup. Come join Rhody Football Front Office for Rhody Football Game Day Live. Free food, DJ Spiffy, contests, and so much more. At the South Lobby outside Two-Toe Gymnasium until 12:30.
Now that we've had some time to digest another storybook Rhode Island Rams victory, let's turn it over to our desk for some game reaction and analysis, starting off with our ground game. Now, guys, if you remember last year, the dominance of Kasim Hill in the passing game was the notable part of our offense. I mean, we had Darius Savage, Cathero Summers, and we still had a Marquise Buchanan who was working his way into being an elite receiver in the CAA. This year, it's the entire opposite. We've been waiting for this run game to really break through and become the dominant factor, the identity of the offense. If you've watched former episodes, you know what we're talking about. We finally are starting to see it with Deon Silas, Malik Grant, and Gabe Sloat. They opened up the pass game for the Rams, but that wasn't the main part of this victory over Hampton, right? I mean, the Rams rushed for 273 yards on 40 attempts. That's averaging 6 yards per carry. That's ridiculous. Grant finished with 180 rushing yards, finished with a touchdown. Silas with 60 and 2 touchdowns, especially that one we mentioned earlier. And Devin Farrell added some numbers in the rushing game, too, with 30 rushes and the game-securing touchdown in double overtime. So, I mean, definitely a big part of this offense right now, and I think we all knew this was what the Rams' identity was going to be.
Yeah, and in previous years, you've seen one dominant running back, right? It was J.D. McKenzie before. Now you have a whole plethora of running backs that are uber talented, and we talked about that gigantic number of 273 rushing yards. Anytime you do that, you should win the game. And honestly, Rhode Island had multiple long touchdown rushes in this game called back through the penalties. This number could have been well over 300. We could have avoided overtime on the back of this rushing game. And obviously Malik Grant has taken over. He was the notable CAA transfer. There was articles written about him as one of the best FCS transfers of the offseason, coming from Sacred Heart. And he has done that these last 2 games. He's taken over, become the primary back. But it is still nice to see Deon Silas and Devin Farrell, and on the occasion we see Sloat in there as well, all contribute to what has been an extremely productive and efficient running attack for the Rams that has done a really good job of kind of taking over this offense as we wait for the passing attack to get going.
Yeah, and one thing that I really liked seeing this week especially was Deon Silas finally kind of getting the reps that we wanted him to get. The Iowa transfer didn't really have any big numbers in his first few years with the Rams. This is probably one of his biggest rushing performances so far. But like you said, we get a lot of yards from the running game from our quarterback, Devin Theriault. Emily, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, totally. So now touching up on our quarterback conundrum, what is going on between this rotation between our two quarterbacks? Last week we discussed on the desk the pros and cons of kind of how this system is working for the Rams, and this two quarterback system continues to be deployed, albeit not in a package situation. Ride in the hot hand, whether it is the explosive dual threat option in Devin Theriault or the pocket passing experience Hunter Helms. Hunter finished 3 for 8 for 24 passing yards and an interception, and Devin finished 14 for 25 for 247 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns and an interception. But here's what we know remains clear. Devin is too dangerous with his feet to simply not play him at all. He just knows where to put the ball. He knows where to put where he wants the play to go. And both quarterbacks seemingly struggling to time up downfield with their receivers. Neither has shown the ability to lead the offense out of their first 3-quarter funk. And we'll see who winds up getting the nod Saturday in the Governor's Cup to start.
So this is one of those games we look back on and we wonder how Hampton picked apart one of the best defenses in the CAA up to this date so far. Quarterback Malcolm Mays only had 4 incompletions on 28 attempts, taking what the Rams' zone coverage gave him on his way to 253 passing yards. He also had 4 passing touchdowns on the day, straying away from Hampton's dominance of their rushing game over their first few games. The Rams' defensive secondary did see its first interception of the season coming from Allende Johnson earlier in the game. Safety Emmanuel Goins also stepped up in the secondary. Andre DePino-Gray and Tremel Stage-Jones left with injuries, constantly blowing up whoever had the ball on a tackle. The Rams' rush defense also held up well. The Pirates were able to get yards on the ground when necessary, but only ran for 191 yards on 48 attempts, good for only 3.6 yards per carry. Linebackers Cole Brockwell and Devin Hightower combined for 14 tackles, 4 of those for a loss, with 3 sacks. Meanwhile, senior Gabe Solomons looked fantastic, whether an outside linebacker containing the run or as the big nickel/overhang in that area, finished with 4 tackles, 1.5 of those for a loss, and even a PBU.
Yeah, we want to also give a shout out to the special teams in a game like this, a 46-44 win. Every single facet of the game is extremely, extremely important, and it really is what turned the tide for the Rams. It was a kickoff. It was a tackle by the kickoff specialist, Will Johnson, late in the game, which brought life and some electricity back into the Rams sideline. And kicker Ty Groff made all of his extra points, and he made all of his field goals. Super, super important for the Rams in a nail-biting 46-44 victory where every single point, every opportunity is important. And so shout out to the Rams special teams for once again executing what is a third of the game.
This Saturday, October 12th, 2024, marks the 42nd ever Governor's Cup between Rhode Island and Brown. Schools are just a little bit over a half an hour away from each other and have a rich history on the gridiron. Last year, the Rams won the Governor's Cup in Providence in a thrilling 34-30 victory, as the game was in a 27-27 stalemate middle third quarter. Running back Jaden McKenzie scored what would go on to the game-winning rushing touchdown as the quarter came to a close. The Rams scored the win with game-stealing interception, winning the Governor's Cup. Quarterback Kasim Hill passed for 3 touchdowns. McKenzie rushed for 111 yards.
Now, entering Saturday's matchup, the Rams are looking to keep the Cup in Kingston. It's been here since 2018's 48-0 win over the Bears, but this game rarely ever ends in a blowout. The teams are meeting for their 109th matchup, playing annually since 1909. Back in the 1900s, the Brown Bears came away victorious most of the time, winning all but 1 year from 1909 through 1951. But, however, the tides turned. 1980s, the Rams had a very great conference winning stretch. Teams began to take control, defending the state's pride. Since the Governor's Cup trophy was introduced, the Rams lead the series by a handful of games. The reason this is such a highly touted matchup is because it truly is the battle for who the best team in the state is. For the Rams, it becomes an expectation that the team walks away with the trophy, and that it comes back to Kingston. Now, there's no rivalry that trumps the one against the team in Providence. Between its impact on in-state recruiting, recognition from the top 25, and what's at stake for this team being 4-1, looking to contend for a CAA title and a playoff spot, this Saturday is a must-win for the Rams.
With that being said, let's dive into what the Brown Bears season has looked like and how the Rams could win the Governor's Cup for the 6th year in a row. Being an Ivy League school with a shorter schedule, the Bears only began their season just 3 weeks ago, and since then they've secured a solid win over Georgetown, a thrilling comeback against Harvard, and a high-scoring contest against another Rhode Island rival, Bryant, a week ago. The Bears want to get back on track. They are not only a well-coached team, but a very talented and experienced one as well.
Yeah, so Brown averages 30 points a game. They have a high-flying passing attack, as they have had for the last couple of years under their current coaching staff. But one thing that continues to strike me as we do our analysis and look ahead at Brown is kind of the unknowns. We really do not know what Brown is about. They've played 3 games, on not so great loss to Bryant, win over a Georgetown program that doesn't have a lot around it, and then a really good win over a Harvard team. Yes, but only 3 games. For Rhode Island, we've seen this team go through thick and thin already. We already know pros and cons and what to expect. So to me, the total unknown around this Brown team, besides what we know about the talent and what we know about the coaches, it's creating a very interesting feel around this game about that unknown and just how much we do know about the Rhode Island Rams.
The Brown Bears use a running back by committee approach, while quarterback Jake Wilcox threatens both with his arms and his legs. Winning this game not only means bragging rights in the state of Rhode Island for the Rams, but maintains their control of their own destiny. As they aim to contend in the CAA, even though this is not a conference game, the Rams cannot afford to lose at home in the Governor's Cup, with away games against New Hampshire and later this season Delaware down the road, obviously CAA opponents. Thank you all for tuning in today's episode of the Rhody Beat Report. This is Emily Lanzarone, joined here by Justin Theriault, Zack Petrick, and Peter Gigliotti. Tune in next week as the Rams head back on the road for a tough CAA matchup against New Hampshire.